Hey, worship teams, welcome back. Glad to have you here today on the Worship Team Hangout. It is fantastic to have you. We got a great show coming your way, and we want to say a great thank you for all of you who have hung out with us and kept things going as far as your comments, your tweets, your likes. Thank you so much for that, and joining us here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, and all the other social networks. And most of all, we want to say a special thanks for our hosts that are with us today. So we want to say welcome and hello again to Swift. How you doing today, baby?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be back. Back online with you guys.
You're real good looking. What'd you do?
I shaved.
Gosh, you look good.
That's good. Timmons. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing great. I'm tired body wise, but my heart's great.
Awesome.
I'm good.
That means you're alive.
Yeah. I was at the National Worship Leader Conference yesterday and just got in last night.
That's great.
It was a blast. So I've just been hanging with my kids this morning. Yeah, good. I'm good.
Good deal. And we have Tony is going to be trying to pop in if he can. Tony's out actually teaching in Arkansas somewhere. And I think last I saw him was on the side of the road. Don't know what happened after that, but hopefully he'll join us if somebody picks him up. We'll find out. And also, Stefanie is away from us today. Stefanie is also teaching where you were, Tim.
Yep.
So that's good stuff. She'll join us on the next show. And speaking of shows, we covered on the last. So first, I want to say thank you guys, Timmons and Swift. It's great to have y'all, and hopefully we'll, have some great discussion, and we have Tony will jump in. It'd be good. The last episode, we talked about doing secular music in the church and secular music in worship and how that panned out. We had a lot of good feedback. Timmons, you had some great things to say, and Swift, I think that you had some other ideas. Would you mind just kind of real quick, you guys? Oh, look who it is! Wow, somebody actually did pick up Tony on the side of the road, and Tony now here he is. He's just joining us. Tony, are you here? How are you?
Tony
Nope.
Q.
Tony, come in, Tony. Can you hear us?
No.
Nothing.
No.
I see his face. His face is beautiful. Look at that.
Gosh, he's good looking.
Yeah, that's a beautiful face.
As Brenton Brown always said, Tony is always intimidating. Oh wait, there he is. Wow, look at him. He's in the hospital bed.
The picture looked better.
All right.
Can you actually hear me?
Yeah, what hospital are you in? We want to make sure we send you flowers and everything. Tony Guerrero, everybody.
Hey, look,
how are you?
I'm overlooking a beautiful lake here.
Nice.
Yep, they have plenty of those in Arkansas.
That's gorgeous.
I'm in Lake Hamilton in Little Rock, Arkansas.
All right.
The birthplace of Bill and Hillary Clinton.
I was just in Arkansas last week, bro. Little Rock.
I was just in there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. You know what's funny is nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, it's funny because we all left and now you're there.
That's hilarious.
All right, good. So, and we talked about doing secular music in worship, and we had some good discussion about that, but that led us to the idea of hiring band members and singers in the church. Now, I don't know what your thought is, worship teams out there. It's something that we've kicked around for an idea as far as it being a big issue. So we want to know, what is your idea? I asked you guys. On one hand, we have, are you tired of missing that one person in your team that you wish, man, if we could just hire another or get another electric guitar player or another singer. But then on the other hand, you have the idea of, yeah, but if I do, and if we hire this one person, are we cheating out the other members of our ministry? So, number one, I asked the first question. I'm just going to give this to you, Tony. Why should a worship leader do any hiring in their band?
Where'd he go?
I wouldn't give it to Tony. He jumped out.
He did. So you're next up, Timmons. So tell us, what would be the advantages?
Well, the advantages are obvious. Like, you've got
bring your video back up too.
Huh?
Bring your video back up if you can.
I don't know what you're talking about. Is my video gone?
Yeah, your video's gone. But go ahead and speak anyway. So tell us, what are the advantages?
I can see.
Yeah, because I look really good right now.
Yeah.
I think the advantages are obvious. You get, let's say, a drummer. Like for me, a drummer is like one of the main pieces. If I have a drummer that's solid, I can, we can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can carry it at least enough on acoustic or electric, whatever I'm using. And if a drummer's kind of solid, then man, I can literally work with anything. So that's the guy that, for me in my fantasy, that's the guy that I actually would love to pay.
Yeah.
So obviously you're getting a great member. You know what I tell singers, because I travel and I go to other people's gatherings and hang out with them there, and sometimes people ask, well, what should I do? And literally what I tell singers and people is I go, do your best, just don't be distracting. I used to really care about that people would shred and their excellence would be, it would be excellent. But excellence became an idol to me.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, my whole thing is just, let's just not be distracting. Let's actually remember, like, what are we actually doing? We're not just creating an awesome band. Like, that's actually not the point of leading worship. That is actually so far down on the list of what's important about leading worship. But yet our religion and our liturgy tells us that we have to do that. So the advantage is you get an awesome band, but the danger, I would say, is that we forget what we're actually supposed to be doing. And the question is, what are we actually doing? Are we just creating great music, and or is this really going to help people be invited into the awareness of the kingdom of God that's alive and well in that room, and then when they leave? So,
right.
The advantage is obvious, but I think it's one of those like warnings for us to go, what's most important, and what are we actually doing, and it's just helping us get to where we actually really need to go.
All right. Swift!
Okay.
Right, got a question for you. Got a question. So if you came to your band right now and said, hey, guys, we went ahead and we hired this drummer. He's going to be with us now for the next 8 weeks. Boom. How would your team respond?
Well, first I wouldn't hire the drummer.
All right. Tell us why.
Well, I would go with a keyboardist, because then I would have like a second director. I would have someone that understands the theory behind music and kind of helps move that along as well.
Okay, but the question proposed is, if you came to your band and said, okay, here's our hired guy,
right?
How would they respond, and would you do that?
Well, I don't know what the response would be. I would hope it would be something positive and supportive. So I don't know what they would respond to. And then yes, I would do that based off of my checklist that I think would work for the environment that I'm in, which is they've built a relationship with me and in the church. They also are capable of leading when I'm on. If I'm not there, or if I'm there and I decide to let them, take. They're like a second me almost. That would be part of my checklist.
I don't want to second you.
So,
don't want to second you.
I mean, I'm just saying that would be
What's
part
enough?
of what I would do. So hopefully the response would be good in that, in hiring someone that is just as capable and just as acknowledgeable as the person that is hired to lead, to make it run smoothly, and mainly get out of the way and let Christ move in that building. That's what I would suggest.
So,
right, but do you need to do that? Do you need to hire somebody to actually do that?
Do I need to hire Well, I mean, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
Totally, I agree with that.
Because, you can't do it all. You don't know it all. And, not, your heart doesn't get tired, as you would say, Tim. But, I mean, your body does, and your brain does, right?
Yeah. So would you want to hire this guy?
Who? Yes, I would hire this guy in a heartbeat.
And Tony, what do you have to say about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
So that moves on to our next question.
Yeah.
So is it biblical, Timmons,
to hire somebody else? This is kind of a Tony question.
Yeah, come on.
He wrote a whole book about this,
Nope.
I mean, Tony would he'd say yes. You know, the Levites were set apart and actually paid or whatever. I mean, people were, that was their job.
Yeah.
They were supported as people that did that. And then, you know, you could go into the whole thing that Tony goes into, and I wish I could talk like him, and I'd be extremely sarcastic and you know.
But you don't. Neither do you
Not
look
nice.
like him. But that's okay.
But Tony, you know, Tony's whole story, you know, if well, we could just see Tony's picture, but Tony's whole story is that he was the guy that was hired in to be a musician, and he was not a follower of Jesus at all. He was just like coming in and going, well, cool, here's some money, and I can play with some people, and that people were really cool, and they started really investing in him, not just paying him, but really investing in him.
Wow.
And Tony met Jesus through that thing, through these people.
That's a great thing.
And then on the other, so, you know, is it biblical? I don't know. Is loving somebody and paying them to come on in and really investing and discipling and using kind of this job to disciple people? Well, according to Tony's story and a ton of Tony's buddies that now know Jesus, the answer is pretty much yes. So, I don't know. You could probably have an argument the other side too.
Yeah, Swift, what do you say about that? Is it biblical?
I mean, man, it's such a thin line with that. Let me rephrase it. Not a thin line, but I have to agree with what Tim is saying as far as like, are you investing in someone and now has their heart changed, their life changed? That's what we're out to do anyway. That's what we're here doing as Christians and leaders in the church. We're trying to disciple the people. We're trying to bring people into a relationship with Christ. So forfeiting all of the rules or the traditional way of thinking, yeah, I would say so. I mean, have I read anything specifically about this in the Bible as far as like hiring someone? No, I haven't. I mean, maybe you guys can insight. I haven't read anything like that. But as far as biblically goes, like getting someone in and investing in them and their life changing, I'm 110% behind that.
Yeah. Okay, well, what about the issue that a lot of teams have that say, hey, you know what? Our worship team is full of volunteers. We don't pay anybody. In fact, it's a privilege, it's an honor to be on the worship team. So why should we pay somebody?
Ooh, can I take that?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Well, because I mean that's the kind of environment we're kind of in. I'm in now. But as far as the whole thing saying it's a privilege and it's an honor, I think you have to feel that way volunteering. You know, when you volunteer and you're being a part, I think if your heart is not set on feeling that way, and I have to tell you that and say that and explain that, then you're probably volunteering for the wrong reasons. So, you know, for someone to have to say, hey, look, man, this is a privilege and an honor for you to be doing this, is, to me, I don't think you need to be a part of that. That's my opinion. Because when I was volunteering, I volunteered for several years before I got hired on, and I loved every minute of it. It was, you know, I was growing and I was learning more, and I had a huge support team around me that whenever I needed something that would help me accountable in so many different ways, that yeah, I felt like it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of it, and no one literally have to say that to me. You know?
Right. So
there's a lot of leadership in that, though. So, I mean, I would say, because I've hired a ton of people in the past, a ton of people, majority of people. And then I've had a ton of volunteers. You know, generally, like we don't pay singers, but we pay, you know, whatever. And both of those, either way, if there's actually not intentional love and intentionality in discipleship of them, I'm just loving them well, and just I'd say you're doing it wrong. And for your volunteers, that they would feel that they'd actually feel this is more than just playing music, because it has to be more than playing music. And I would just say that I made it more about playing music, and I just kind of was like, well, this is the point. The point is what we're doing here, and that's a load of crap. Like it can't be that. It literally cannot be that. What a waste of our lives if our lives are about music. If that's the point of hiring this person, then I think it's a total waste.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so if your volunteers know why they're doing this, then it's a joy. If your
Yeah.
paid people know why they're doing it, and as a leader, you're actually investing in them with the why behind all that stuff, which I did not do. I really wish I could go back in a lot of ways and go back and like keep the vision in front of people of the why and what we're doing. Dude, it would be so much better.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Tim. And just to speak personally on that same issue, I feel that there's a logistical side when we pay musicians for the need of making them like a mentor or a teacher of the group that can serve as one component. The other component is that if you're having a lacking person in the band and you need somebody to fill that spot, then it's no different from hiring someone else to do a job. Spirituality is an issue, and leading somebody to Christ, or having somebody, or having. Wait, hold on. I'm talking, Tony. I'm talking. You're not. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I know, but you may lose me in this.
No. Okay, I'll get to you in a second. Or you came late. So, but what I'm saying is that there's the spiritual issue side of it, and would you put a non-Christian and hire them, put them in the front to lead worship? No. Putting them in the band? Maybe. It depends also on the leadership and the pastor of your church and what that vision is, because there's a lot of positives that can happen. We spoke about that regarding Tony's story. So, Tony, take us from there. What's your thought on this whole thing?
What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about taking out the trash and that being a qualification for worship leaders.
Well, let me say my
The
main
band
issue,
scenario. Yeah.
my main points that I want to bring up about the whole issue, and I realize that I've been having problems and I can't hear what you guys have been talking about, so this may have already been covered, but I'll just give my points in case I get cut off. I'm in a really bad reception area.
You have 3 minutes. Make it quick.
I don't even need that long. First thing I would tell you to do is, in terms of any argument with should musicians ever be paid, I would tell you to go to Nehemiah 13. There's an area. Tell me if you've already talked about that.
See, Timmons?
No, I brought up these scriptures, but keep bringing them up. They'll need to hear them again.
Yeah.
Go for it. Nehemiah 13.
Well, Nehemiah was basically had learned that the temple had been neglecting to provide for the singers, and that the singers were forced to go back to work in their fields. And he basically just admonished the temple leaders and said, "No, you go back and work their fields because we need them here to do this work." So it's a very clear example of providing for the musicians, of the church providing for the musicians. So I would tell you to look at Nehemiah 13. He said, "I also discovered that the Levites had not been given their prescribed portions of food, so they and the singers who were to conduct the worship services had all returned to work their fields. I immediately confronted the leaders and demanded, why has the temple of God been neglected?" They're not just talking about neglecting the singers or the musicians, but the temple of God has been neglected. Then I called the Levites back again and restored them to their proper duties. On the other side of that, I would tell you that when Paul in 1 Corinthians talks about getting paid and how, as preachers of the gospel, they have a right to expect to be paid, but then he declines that payment. I would tell you that as musicians, if this is your living and this is what you do, it's okay. I think it's totally fair to expect to be paid. If you also happen to be a successful attorney and are making millions of dollars a year, you probably don't need to take that money from the church for the $100 they're going to pay you, whatever. So I think there's stuff to balance on both sides of the issue. And as far as I'll just throw this in case I get cut off again, as far as the idea of non-believers in the worship setting is something I have a lot of experience with. I've seen amazing stories of people coming to Christ that way, but it is not something to be taken lightly. There are a whole lot of things that you have to be watching out for that have to go through your leadership. It has to be done very intentionally, and I'm sorry to put it this way. It's the easiest way I can say this, but I cover a lot of that in my book, Attracting Quality Musicians, the things that have to be in place to be using non-believers. It's a very sketchy thing, and you've got to do it a certain way, I believe, but you can have amazing results for the kingdom that way. So
what's your-
those are
what's
the
your
main
book
things I
called?
would want to say on this topic, and I'll stay on, but I might get cut off.
What's your book called, Tony? Where can people get it?
It's called Attracting Quality Musicians, and you can just order it at my website at tonyguerrero.com.
Great.
Gotta have it. I gotta
Great
have it.
resource.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Tony, thanks so much, man. That's a great word, and it is a great book, everybody. You need to check that out. And also, if you want to hear more on these topics, we teach these things at our workshops, and we have guys like Tony, Timmons, Sean come in and help you with your team. And the whole point is to better equip what you do with your worship team. And as far as if it's hiring another person, bettering the skills of another, those are the very things that we cover in our weekend workshops and power workshops. So be sure to check that out at worshipteamtraining.com. We got to sign off at this moment, but we got to tell you our next few shows coming up. We got 2 impressive shows. We may actually continue this conversation because it's just so darn good. But our next topic we're going to talk about is, why do my rehearsals suck?
Ooh.
That's going to be one that we got to cover because a lot of you guys have been asking us questions of how can we make our rehearsals more productive. And another one is 5 reasons why you're too nice. So those are issues and topics that we're going to cover on the next Worship Team Training Hangout, July 30th, 2014. Join us here, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Swift, thank you so much for being here, brother. Good to see you. Glad you're here.
Glad I
Thanks
was
for
here.
And Timmons, great to have you as well, Bubba. Say
Tony.
bye-bye.
Studio
And Tony.
2015.
Yes, and Tony, you made the whole show
I'm there
worth
for
it. You made it worth it, baby. Thank you.
Love that guy, man.
All right,
Tony
you guys,
agrees.
signing
He's saying
off.
yes.
Blessings to you, worship teams. We'll see you next time on the Worship Team Training Worship Team Hangout.